So okay. So it was number 17 in the zombie book. And the problem said negative 2/3 x plus 5 equals 20 minus x. All right. And you don't have to do this anytime you see an x by itself, but it can be beneficial. So if you are seeing an x that's alone and it feels confusing to you, you're always welcome to go and take that x that's by itself and stick a 1 in front of it, because any x that's alone always has a coefficient of 1. They're saying that there's just one of those x's. Okay, they're saying that there's just one of those x's, and sometimes that helps to be able to think of it in terms of having a number there. So if we wanted to get the x's to one side, would you guys rather take these x's right here and move them over to the right side, or do you want to take these x's and move them over to the left side? What would you guys rather do? Move them to the left or move them to the right? I heard one of each, so we need a tiebreaker. Move them to the left or move them to the right? Move them to the right. Okay, so if we want to take the x's and move them to the right, then we're going to say plus 2/3 x plus 2/3 x. And then we have 5 equals 20, and we have to see how many x's we have. So I've got negative 1x, and I'm going to add 2/3 to that. And there's a couple different ways you can type that into your calculator, and your calculator can get the right answer no matter how you type it. So in your calculator, you can type it using the fraction function of your calculator, or you can type it using division. So if you type it as a fraction, the way we type a fraction in these calculators is we use the alpha button, which is the green button. So we would do negative 1 plus, and then to type the 2/3, we would hit the alpha button right here. Alpha y equals. Alpha y equals, and I should see everyone doing that, including Daniel and Jameson. Thank you. So negative 1 plus alpha y equals, and then we're going to use the first option, which is just numerator over denominator, and 2/3 is what we're typing. So if you type it this way, it's going to give you the answer as a fraction. That's one way to type it. The other way to type it is you could type negative 1 plus, and you could use the 2/3 as division, because division and fractions are the same thing. So for 2/3, you could type 2 divided by 3. 2 divide button 3. 2 divided by 3. That would give you the same answer, but it would give it to you as a decimal, and you would have to convert that decimal into a fraction on the calculator. So if I got this on the calculator, then I get that decimal, and to take this answer and put it into a fraction, I would hit the math button right underneath the green button. The first option says frac. I'm going to turn it into a fraction, so I press enter on number 1, and I press enter. Negative 1/3. So negative 1x plus 2/3 x is negative 1/3 x. So minus 1/3 x. All right, so I have my x's on the right. I have a positive 20 over here. How do I get rid of the positive 20? I subtract the 20. And what is 5 take away 20? negative 15. So we have negative 15 equals negative 1/3 x. So we have a negative 1/3 that's being multiplied by the x right now, and we want the x to be all alone. So how do we get the x to be all alone without the 1/3? We divide. So we want to divide by a negative 1/3 and divide by a negative 1/3. So negative 15 divided by negative 1/3 is going to equal the x. So to type that in, this is a fraction. I'm going to do alpha y equals, that's how I get the fraction in my calculator. So alpha y equals negative 15. And then you can type in the fraction on the bottom, negative 1/3, or you can type in division, negative 1 divided by 3. They're both going to give you the same answer. So I can do alpha y equals on the bottom, negative 1/3, or I can do negative 15 over negative 1 divided by 3. They look slightly different when I type them, but they give me the same answer. So 45. X equals 45. All right. How do you guys feel about that one? So if you ever need to type in a fraction and you don't remember, you can always ask me, how do we type that in, and I'll just remind you. Okay, that's always fair game. All right. Okay, let's do a couple more examples. Today you're going to see some problems that have parentheses in them, and I just want to make sure that we know how to handle solving equations that have parentheses. Okay, so let's go ahead and try we're going to do 1 plus 5 times 7 plus 3x equals 12x plus 5x. So if you have an equation like this and it has parentheses in it, the very first thing you're going to do is get rid of the parentheses. So you're not going to do anything to solve the equation. The very first thing you're going to do is distribute to get rid of the parentheses. So we're going to say, I'm going to write this in capitals, parentheses first. Oops. So students make mistakes if they don't do the parentheses first. So I'm going to leave the 1 in the front. I can't do anything with the 1. And then what happens when I multiply the 5? What do I get? 35 and 15x, okay, equals 12x plus 5x, okay? All right, and then after this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to combine like terms. So if you look at the left side of the equation, we've got the 15 with the x. That's the only part on the left side that has an x. But what else do you notice? We've got a 1 and we've got a 35. Could we put those together? Yeah, those are like terms. So if you take the 1 and the 35 and put them together, what do you get? 36. So I'm going to say on the left side, I have 36 plus 15x. And then if I look on the right side, I have 12x and 5x. What do you guys notice about that? You can add those together, and we get 17x. Okay? Yeah. So now we want to get the x's to one side. So should we move the 17 over to the left side, or should we move the 15 over to the right side? Okay, so I'd say moving the 15 over to the right side is a good idea because the 36 is already on the left side. And because the 15 was positive, we moved it over by subtracting. So what do we have on the right side? 2x. And what do we have on the left side? 36. And then how do we get the x alone? Divide by 2. Half of 36 is 18. I can't do it on there. Here we go. Perfect. You're good. All right. Let's try another one. Okay, we're going to do x minus 6x plus 30 equals 2x plus 4 times x minus 20. So what should we do first? Parentheses. And what do we do with the parentheses? Distribute the 4, and we have 4x, not 60, negative 80. Okay, so we have 2x plus 4x minus 80. Okay, and then the left side we're just going to copy. Okay. And then if we look at just the left side, are there any like terms we can combine on the left side? Yeah. The x and the negative 6x. Not 7, because we have a positive and 6 negatives. Negative 5. Perfect. So negative 5x plus 30. And then on the right side, what do we have? 6x minus 80. Okay. So now we've got variables on each side. We got numbers on each side. We want the variables to all come to one side of the equation. So do you guys want to move all the variables over here with the 6x? Or do we want to take the variables and move all of them over here with the 5x? You can do either way. It doesn't matter. Move them to the 6x. So if we move them over here, how do we move? We're going to add. So the opposite of negative 5x is positive 5x. How many x's do we have? 11. Okay. All right, if the x is right here, do we want to move the 30 or do we want to move the 80? We want to move the 80. How do you move a negative 80? You're going to add it. $110. Divide by 11. X equals 10. Anyone remember how we checked our answers yesterday? We could do it on the calculator. We would take our answer, we would do something with it. We would save it in the calculator. So if my answer is 10, I'm going to type 10 in the calculator. I click store, so right above the on button is the STO store button. And I store it as X. So the X button is right up here. I store it as X. Okay? And then what do I do? Type in the left side of the equation, type in the right side of the equation, and make sure they equal the same thing. X minus 6x plus 30. So that's the left side. It equals negative 20. The right side also equals negative 20. So that means we got it right. All right, how do you guys feel about those equations? We're good? We feel comfortable? Okay. All right, we're going to do an activity today with our groups.